This woman's incredible act of honesty paid off in an unusual way. If you found a wallet full of cash just sitting in the middle of the sidewalk and no one was around, what would you do? The honest thing would be to use the information inside to try and return the wallet to its rightful owner. Being honest isn't always the easiest thing though, especially when there's nobody looking. So when a young woman named Sydney bumped into the car next to her while backing out of a crowded parking lot, even though nobody'd seen the accident, she still decided to do the right thing. However, she had absolutely no idea that her simple act of honesty would come back to her in a very special way. What would you do if you were in Sydney's shoes? Let us know in the comments below, and then be sure to leave us a like and subscribe for more. One of Sydney's favorite things to do was shop, and she'd frequently drive to her local mall and spend the afternoon visiting all of her favorite stores. One day though, her usual trip to the mall turned out to be anything but an ordinary experience. When she pulled into the parking lot that day, Sydney immediately became apprehensive. The lot was much more full than usual, and fitting her car into a parking spot was going to be pretty difficult. When she finally managed to find an opening and pull her car in, there wasn't even enough room for her to open her door. So Sydney decided to back out of the tight space, and that's when it happened. Suddenly, as Sydney was backing out, she felt her car bump into the vehicle next to hers. She immediately panicked. She'd never been in any type of accident before. How exactly was she going to handle this? First, she decided to get out of her car in order to assess the damage. She found that her car looked totally fine, but unfortunately the car she'd bumped into had a smudge of black paint on the left bumper. Feeling guilty, Sydney then wrote a note explaining what had happened and left it tucked underneath the windshield wipers of the other car. She also made sure to include her name and her phone number so that the owner of the vehicle could contact her in order to get everything resolved. As it turns out, the other car actually belonged to a popular YouTuber named Stuart Edge. Stuart first joined the website all the way back in 2012, and since then he's accumulated millions of subscribers and hundreds of millions of views. Of all the cars that Sydney could have bumped into, it just so happened that she'd left a scrape on the vehicle of a popular internet personality. Stuart and his crew were filming near the shopping mall that day, and once they wrapped everything up, Stuart walked back to his car and found the note on his windshield. Immediately, he decided to get the cameras back out. His crew began filming again, and Stuart read the note out loud into the camera. He was in awe of Sydney's honesty, especially considering the fact that the mark she'd left on his car was barely noticeable. Stuart had met a lot of people in his life, but he knew that this note must have clearly been from someone with a kind heart, so came up with the idea of making Sydney the star of his next YouTube video. One of Stuart's crew members suggested playing a lighthearted prank on her somehow, so one of Stuart's friends pulled out her cell phone and, pretending to be the owner of the car that Sydney hit, gave the number left on the note a call. Sydney answered and was very apologetic, so Stuart's friend suggested that they meet up somewhere to exchange information. That's where Stuart comes in. After agreeing on a nearby location, Stuart and his crew parked across the street to capture the whole thing on film as Sydney waited alone at a table. Then Stuart got the prank underway by casually walking up and sitting down at the table next to hers. In an instant, the two of them had already started a polite conversation back and forth. Eventually, Stuart took the opportunity to ask Sydney why she was there, and she told him the story of how she'd hit a car in a parking lot earlier that day and that she was actually waiting to meet with the owner of the vehicle. After a bit more small talk, Stuart finally decided to make the big reveal. He'd secretly brought an envelope containing $200 with him, and he smiled brightly as he slipped it across the table to her. "I like honest people," he said. "That's for you." Sydney was incredibly shocked that a total stranger would be willing to help her out, so that was when Stuart pointed out all the cameras and let her in on the prank. "That was my car that you hit," he said with a smile. Sydney couldn't believe it. Her simple act of honesty had not only made her feel better about the whole ordeal, but then she even got rewarded for it too. Without a doubt, this incredible story just helps to prove the fact that honesty really is the best policy. What do you think of Stuart's kind show of appreciation? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this story and to subscribe for more.